Serious? Redditors who suddenly came into a lot of money. What was your horror story of people begging for money? I unexpectedly inherited about 4 years worth of take-home pay. Before I knew how much it would be, I told my best friend I'd be getting a few $1,000s. She immediately asked me to take her on a trip to Europe. That was the biggest thing she asked for, but she made other small requests as well. When the money came through, and it was a lot more than I'd anticipated, I did not tell my friend. Instead, I started distancing myself from her. I also did not tell any of my other friends. I did tell my boyfriend. He did not ask for anything. I took him on a trip to Europe. I once took second in a poker tournament and won $150k. There was an audience of about 200 people when it finished. Common practice was PPL ask winners for a lucky chip. I was almost mobbed by people begging for lucky chips as I left the casino. Had to be escorted by security and paid a friend $300 to follow me in their car, and we drove all over town for 2 hours to make sure nobody was following me home. My money came in the form of accidental death inheritance after my dad died in a motorcycle crash. His girlfriend at the time was furious that he left everything to me. She tried to convince me to give her money, and when I refused, she took everything, and I mean everything, from his house overnight. She rented 2 U-Hauls and her brother raided the place. Furniture, household supplies, food, clothes, everything was gone. By the time I got there, their only things left were a few t-shirts she left on the floor and a couple empty cans of soda on the kitchen counter. She even took things that held no monetary value, like a calendar I made my dad for Father's Day one year. It was just colorful cardboard and pictures of us I had glued together. She took it all. She started selling what she could on Facebook, mostly his woodworking tools and fishing gear, and she fled to somewhere in the next state over. We tried to get help from the police, but they didn't do much. She did a lot of other things that were bigger legal issues, I guess. For instance, she ran a fake GoFundMe claiming the funds were going to his funeral and managed to get over 10 grand from his co-workers. But I'm the one who paid for the services. Last I heard, they finally found her in some woodsy town, but I don't know what happened. It's honestly too emotional to deal with, and I've accepted the fact that she most likely destroyed or sold everything already anyway. It's been 2 years since this all happened. It's horribly sad, though. I can give an answer, although it is developing at this stage. All throughout school I was a bit of a loser. Didn't do well in class and never really cared. I used to go out all the time with my friends and would hang out with them all the time. After school I didn't do much other than waste time until I found my wife and wanted to start being better for her. I did a 1-year software development course and then got a pretty shitty job making almost nothing in my country, South Africa. When my wife got pregnant, all my friends basically ghosted me as I wasn't going to be going out partying with them anymore. They wouldn't return my texts or even answer my calls. A few years down the line I landed a very high paying remote job. 200k plus for a SF based company. The average salary for a software developer in South Africa is around $30k per year. My wife was very proud of me, I think, and posted a picture of me on her Facebook standing next to my new car that I had just bought. Not 20 minutes after she posted it, I started getting messages from some of my old friends saying that it had been a while and they wanted to catch up and really missed me. There was one guy I always had a soft spot for and decided that I would go have dinner with him and see how the last 4 years of his life treated him. We hadn't even ordered our food yet when he dropped the bomb on me that he felt that I owed him a lot of money for always being there for me and that I would be selfish to not give him some money as I had so much. I quietly just got up and left. I eventually changed my number and deactivated my social media accounts, but people still harass my wife and mother to try and get some money out of me. This doesn't even go into the absolute shit I had coming from my dad's side of the family, who are basically hillbillies. I inherited my beloved grandma's house alongside with some other properties. As the house and the properties are near a very rapidly developing city, prices have skyrocketed and lead to me inheriting about $1.5 million in value. That may sound awesome at first, but it truly isn't. The house is a very old brick house, built in the late 1700s, and the properties are so small and widely distributed I can't really sell them for a good price. As the house is a listed historical building, every little repair has to be done by state-approved professionals for restoration and conservation of old buildings, which basically doubles if not even triples the costs. I rented it out. but the rent I get is barely enough to cover the costs of repairs, insurance, etc. I am lucky if I get even by the end of the year, but as this house is where my family used to live for the last 4 generations before my dad bought the ranch and moved there with my mum, I want to keep it in the family as long as possible. Now, somehow, word has spread that I inherited a lot of money. I did my best to stop these rumors, but it didn't work out. I've never had many friends, but the ones I have are true quality friends. They will do everything for me and I will do everything for them. After I got the house and the rumors spread, I got invitations to dinner in some really fancy restaurants. I was invited to sport events. I don't even like sports, and some other very costly activities. All these came from people who claimed to be my friends. Needless to say, they expected me to pay for everything. You've got so much money. What do these $500 matter to you? I'll pay you back sometimes, etc. were the common phrases I got to hear. The best one were, "You are way too young, 28 BTW, to have this kind of money. So just give it to us. You don't deserve to have so much money. You have never worked a day in your life. Been working at the power plant since I was an apprentice at 16. Worked my way up to deputy manager shift supervisor, while the guy this came from was unemployed as long as I can remember and lived from welfare. I have now learned who to trust and to spot telltale signs of vultures." So I wouldn't consider it a lot of money, but I won $5,000 on a scratch off that was given to me on my birthday by my aunt. It was just a $2 scratcher and obviously nobody thought I would win that much. I scratched it in front of everyone and they were all super excited for me except my aunt, who demanded the ticket back because she paid for it. I even offered to split half with her. Long story short, she took me to small claims where the judge pretty much laughed and she didn't get. Haven't talked to her since. So a few years out of college, my girlfriend and I were living in a sort of large communal apartment with 5 other people, 2 bedrooms, 2 couches in the common area. I had just gotten a significant promotion at my job and that situation was exceptionally below my means. But my GF was convinced that these were her people and they were all going to become great philosophy writers and poets by living together and sharing experiences. They were all unemployed or underemployed, and experienced moochers. So I was very careful not to let them know I was saving large sums of money with the intent of moving out soon and taking my GF with me, or not. One day the other couple had an argument about rent, and to try and keep them from coming to blows, my GF promised them that I'd cover it for them and showed them one of my pay stubs, which I guess they showed everyone else. I got home from work and walked right into an apartment meeting ambush where everyone else informed me that they wanted me to contribute more meaningfully and they'd put it to a vote before I got back. I told them that I was already paying for their food, that they kept guilting my GF into buying for them, topping up the apartment emergency fund instead of stealing from it like the rest of them, and many other things, and that I wasn't going to cover other people's rent as well. The next day when I was at work, someone went into my room and destroyed my laptop, which was the only thing of value I owned at the time. I collected the few things I wanted to take, told my GF I was breaking up with her, and walked out. No one asked for anything. I had borrowed some money from a friend long before it happened, and when I paid her back she said she'd never expected that I'd really repay her. She was like that. I only ever lend money to friends when I can live with never seeing the money again, because once they ask, it's only as a last resort, and I'm happy to help. So when I started dating my boyfriend, I didn't know just how rich he was. We were both 25. By this point he had already made his insane fortune and was quietly investing it whilst working as a primary school teacher because he enjoys teaching and is very talented with kids. After about 8 months of dating, he finally opens up to me about his finances. He is an extremely modest person and uses his money almost exclusively for charity and investing in environmental technology. We had been planning on going to Malaysia and I was a bit stressed at how to budget my money for the trip. Anyways, long story short, he said it took time for him to tell me because he wanted to make sure I loved him for who he is, which was and still is true. Showed me his investments and private account statements, and I'm not going to lie, I got aroused looking at them. By the age of 24 he had basically broken the £100 million liquid worth mark, and it was still growing. After this we go on the best holiday of my life. I've grown up lower middle class my whole life, so suddenly flying in first class and living a five life in Malaysia for about a month without a care in the world was something else. Anyways, as people do, we put pictures up on Instagram, Facebook. Suddenly I get bombarded by people saying since when did I get rich and if I had spare money laying around. My own aunt knocked on my door at 4 AM and slapped me in the face for lying about my money and tried to get her son to barge into my flat. Thankfully my boyfriend was there. He absolutely ruined them both. After this she went around telling all of my relatives I had been hiding my wealth and refused to pay for my little sister's treatment before she died. She passed before I met my boyfriend and the treatment likely wouldn't have worked. This hurt me a lot and for some reason my family took her side. I cut them off and about 2 weeks later someone set fire to my flat. My neighbor's kids ended up in hospital. Thanks to security cameras and an eyewitness, my own father and brother got jail time. I went from thinking about all the possibilities of the great stuff I could do for my family with the money to almost being killed by the man cutting them out within a few weeks. It effing sucks how money changes people. My grandma died a week before Christmas, and she left her house and 1/4 of her small fortune to me. The rest of the money went to my brother and my 2 cousins. My uncles and aunts have been a pain in my back ever since, claiming that the money house are theirs, etc. And I've also been approached by people who I haven't seen or talked in a while. Even my ex, who dumped me for some douchebag rugby player, started talking to me again and inviting me to places. And she's still dating the same guy. Anyway, I'm not naive enough to lend those people money or befriend even. Luckily I have good friends and my brother as advisors. So, I knew this girl who was an adult worker, had known her for years, and we had even briefly dated before she got into that line of work. She was always really open about what she was doing, and that she enjoyed it, which I believed because this woman was a freak, in a good way. In fact, one of the reasons things hadn't worked out was that she was way too kinky for me, and I'm pretty open-minded. She always explained it to me like this: I would be a total slut either way, so why not get paid for it and not have to work? Fair enough. I didn't question it. Fast forward like 10 years, and I had inherited a bunch of money, not like obscenely wealthy, but enough to really change my lifestyle. And I still talk to my friend regularly, even though we live in different parts of the country. She was one of the few people who was there for me consistently through some really dark times, and I was there for her in the same way, and I really valued her friendship. She started talking about how she wasn't young anymore, and she wasn't happy anymore doing what she was doing and wanted to change directions. You probably can guess where this was going. She had a plan that seemed pretty good. I was also in the midst of intentionally drinking myself to death, and I was pretty sure I was going to die soon. I came very close, so I didn't really care about money. I ended up giving her $10,000 that she needed to go back to school. Not a loan, just gave it to her. I don't know what she spent it on. Dogs probably, but she didn't go back to school. She abruptly cut off contact with me after 12 years, and that was that. Obviously I didn't die, although as I said I came extremely close. I still have money, so I'm not even mad about that. And she was legitimately a huge support in my life for a long time, when there was no expectation of her ever getting anything out of it. So I'm still grateful for that. I think her demons just got the best of her, and she's probably really ashamed or maybe even dead, but it was such a painful betrayal. Got a $7,000 settlement from a car accident. I accidentally left the check on the corner table in the living room. My dad walks into my bedroom and asks if I can lend my mom any money. I work minimum wage retail and ask him how much does she need. He says how about half of that $7,000 check. It has been almost 8 years. I haven't seen any of that money back. Not technically begging, but still a horror story in my opinion. When I was around the age of 5, I had a job. Of course, my mom helped out tremendously and got me involved in this career platform, but it took a lot of time and effort on both of our parts, so we quite the profit from it. All the money was deposited under my name though, so I could use it once I turned 18. Didn't know this until I actually turned 18. But a trusted family member who knew my account information went into my account and took a good portion of money. It was pretty messed up realizing that someone who had already done some pretty messed up to me during my life also felt comfortable enough basically stealing money from a child. Still upsets me to this day because I wish that money could have gone to my mom. She deserved it more than anyone. Edit. For those wondering what job I had at age 5, I was in the acting and modeling industry. People weren't begging, but we felt like they were jealous and envious and did not approve of our decision. Basically, my husband came into money because he had a number of severe permanent injuries from his prior job, so he got paid out a large sum and decided to stop working for a while. This was because we had been through some very serious illness. I was ill, and personal circumstances which messed us both up mentally, so we wanted to take the time to recover our mental health. And secondly, he needed to study to change careers because he was unable to work in his former career due to injuries. Many people, even our parents, disagree with him having even a few months off work to recuperate. This really sheds me up the wall. And there have been so many people that don't think we deserve the money and are envious of the house we were able to buy with it. I'm a fairly average guy in my mid-20s who always wears the same $2 shirt and $5 jeans. But over the years it started to leak out that I had some money after a combination of me buying a business in my very small hometown, a gossipy girl from school who saw me on Seeking Arrangement, and enough social media posts showing me constantly traveling in business class or whatever, and the fact I seem to do very little actual work. Then in the last year or so I've discovered a seemingly entire new branch of my family tree and a whole bunch of people from high school I don't remember ever saying more than a few words to suddenly claiming me as their childhood best friends. I caught up with an old actual schoolmate who knew me well enough and were having coffee, and she asks, "Is it true you bought a plane?" And a few things like that were absolutely insane. The Chinese whispers in my town had apparently gone absolutely crazy, and I'm always uncomfortable running into someone when I'm back there because everyone thinks I'm some crazy playboy millionaire when I spend most of my time in a blanket fort on the internet like everybody else. The extended family are the worst though, because they harass my mum, dad and grandmother who know nothing about my financial situation to borrow money. Many of these people I've never met in my life. Not an interesting story, but definitely an annoyance in my life.